literally experienced the streets, what the women go through. And we also got, in the end, to, because we know Hindi, we had the chance to interact with the women directly. So it was a great experience. I think what they're doing is great, and the intention is so nice that they wanted to empower the women with the right to live, and what they're educating the women is something really, really good. So I guess that's what I want to say, and I'll give the mic to Annie.
Before we get there, is Mara over here? She's not? Okay, cool. Actually, Judy, I'm totally gonna put you on the spot. Do you want to talk a little bit about the project that you guys are doing with Freeset? Oh, she's here, never mind. Sorry. Shut it down. Maribel, I was just going to say, do you want to talk a little bit about your visit up to Freeset and what you guys are working on now?
I guess I want to, what was said or not said. Sorry.
Just don't even worry about it.
Okay. So when I went to visit Freeset, one of the most impressive things I thought was sort of seeing all the women in this community and almost like a safe haven from where they are and the area that they live in, and also the trust that they have in the people that they work with and for. And I also, at night, was able to tour the Servitude, which is the red light district, and visit them in their homes. And I did it with one of the members of Freeset, and the way in which they let us in, and that comfort and that trust that they have, considering how little they have and they're willing to offer us anything, was really just amazing, and it tells you a lot about the relationship that Freeset does have with the women. I also love the fact that Freeset doesn't put so much emphasis on growing for the sake of growing, but growing in a way that would benefit the women. Always the focus on the women and making sure that they're getting what they need. So I don't know if you guys have read about it, but aside of providing the women jobs, they also give them counseling services in order to slowly, it's a very slow process from leaving what they call the line to work full-time at Freeset. And they're very concerned about that, and that being a successful change over. And so, yeah.
Project you guys are working on?
Oh, so we're working with Freeset basically on their business in the U.S. They have mainly two areas, which is the t-shirt and the handbags. And we're mainly focusing on the t-shirts in helping them identify new markets in which they can sell to, analyzing who their competitors are so they know where they stand, what their core competencies are, and also in helping them analyze what's the optimal structure for the relationships with their distributors.
Thank you guys very much. I'm not going to take too much of your time. I just wanted to introduce our guest. On right here, David Eggert is joining us. Not too far to show us, but he works with Justice Ventures International, which is a legal organization that partners with Freeset. He'll be sharing a little bit about that. Senator Annie Hilton is coming all the way from Calcutta to join us, and who, along with her husband Kerry, started Freeset about 10 years ago in Calcutta. And then lastly, we have Anna Kim, based in DC, who I got connected to Freeset through, but also manages a lot of the Freeset USA distribution as well as Justice Ventures International. So with that, I'll invite David up to talk a little bit about what is Justice Ventures International and how they partner with this entity called Freeset Global.
Thanks so much. I'll try to be brief because I just came from Harrisonburg and Annie came all the way from India, so she should get things going. Plus, she's a lot more interesting than I am. But it's a little bit scary. I'm a lawyer here talking to all these business people. But I'm a lawyer, was a lawyer in Washington, D.C. for about 25 years. And about 10 years ago, I took 3 months off to work with a group that was working on human trafficking issues in Thailand. And that experience kind of rocked my world as an attorney, kind of opened my eyes and perspective to things that you could do as a professional to really help make the world a better place in ways that I could really be effective in doing that. So long story short, along with a guy named Jeff Pankratz, who couldn't be here today, who's the president of JVI, and other individuals, we started Justice Ventures International about 7 or 8 years ago which was a group of professionals, mainly lawyers, but we have an accounting guy in there too. And our goal is to reach out to groups in India and in China particularly. We decided to pick out those two small countries to begin with. To find groups that were working on justice issues, particularly in the area of trafficking and urban poverty, other vulnerable groups in those countries, and to come alongside them and to figure out if there are ways that we could help them and assist them. And so the things that we do are, number one, we actually, since a lot of us are lawyers, we do casework. And we've developed about 3 or 4 offices around the world. We have one in Beijing, 3 offices in India, where we actually hire lawyers, investigators, other caseworkers to work alongside NGOs that are working on these types of issues. And we provide legal support to help persuade government authorities to raid and to rescue people that are in trafficked and imprisoned conditions, to try to make sure that they're prosecuted, to try to make sure that the victims are given proper aftercare and development afterwards, and to try to help those groups that are helping people like that. And that's how we have come to know Freeset. We also engage in advocacy work in which we try to tell victims or potential victims about what their legal rights are, what the risks are associated with certain things. Because the scourge of human trafficking around the world, it kind of blows the mind to know that here today in 2014, there are as many as 25 or 30 million slaves in the world today who are basically forced to do work that no human being should have to do. And there's a lot of women and girls that are trapped in the sex industry, but also a lot of other industries as well. India is a very big place for much of the trafficking, but it's all over the world in various places. I was just talking to someone during lunch. It exists even here in the United States and in the Shenandoah Valley. I-81 corridor has been identified as a major trafficking artery within the United States even. Not on the same scale as it might be in some other places, but it exists here, right on your own doorstep. Anyway, I got carried away there. We do advocacy work, sometimes try to get laws changed, but try to train police, try to train NGOs about matters related to trafficking and helping women or children who've been taken out of trafficked situations. And then we also do a lot of work with urban poverty in Mumbai. So people that are in slums who are at risk of losing their homes. We have a number of lawsuits that we brought on behalf of those people. But one thing that we do is we have a whole division of JVI, which deals with what we call freedom businesses. Freedom businesses being businesses that are actually trying to apply business principles to help the victims of trafficking or other injustices. And one of the things that we do in that regard is to provide legal support and legal advice to those groups. If they're involved in export-import, maybe we give them export-import advice. If they want to expand within their country, sometimes we can provide them with legal advice as to how they're doing that. Or everybody has legal issues and legal problems, right? Even if you're trying to do good things. So we try to provide legal support either through our own people or through volunteers with whom we can connect our partners, we call them. One of our chief partners in India for many years has been Freeset. And we just are amazed by the work that they do, and you guys are really privileged to have Annie Hilton, one of the founders, here with you today. For Freeset, we provided various legal advice over the years. We also act as one of their distributors in the United States, so I'm interested in seeing what the final result is of the analysis of the best relationship between Freeset and its distributors, because I think that would be great to come up with the optimal way to do that. And then we are also involved in partnership, and I don't know if Annie might be talking a little bit more about this, about a new project that Freeset is undertaking. They've been in Calcutta for many years, but they are opening up a new facility in Murshidabad, which is a source place for many of the trafficked girls that come into Calcutta. And and we'll be working with them to provide a legal component to what they're trying to do in Murshidabad, which among other things will be to try to take legal steps to prevent trafficking, to make sure that traffickers are prosecuted and punished, but also to provide education as we do elsewhere, and to provide some legal component to a training that Freeset hopes to do for other groups that want to do things similar to what Freeset is doing, and to give them a legal component of that training. So without taking any more of your time, I think it's probably best to let Annie come and talk about some of the great things that they're doing.
Yeah, I do. That would be great. Just a quick thanks for this opportunity. This is totally not my usual scene, and I feel, I've got to say, a little bit intimidated coming to a business school. I'm really just a hands-on person. I don't know that I have anything to share other than 12 years, I guess, of being in business in a foreign country and learning, a huge learning curve for me. I'm actually a physical therapist, so this is definitely not my core strength. Give me someone with a sore ankle or a back or neck and I'm there, but however, we've done Freeset and I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit about that with you. But I just want to give you a glimpse into one of our women's lives. She's kindly allowed us to use her story. She's very brave. She's been with us for 12 years and we've changed her name, but actually she's happy to be photographed and she's happy to have this story done about her. So you will see the impact that business is doing on an individual. Just to give you a bit brief background to Freeset. We began 12 years ago. My husband and I, 14 years ago, with our 4 children, found ourselves living in Calcutta. That was a story in itself. And the community we found around us, we were pretty naive. We're Kiwis, okay? So we didn't know a lot of stuff, and we found ourselves in this red light district. And the issues and the women began to confront us, and we began to think, we've got to do something about this. These women are literally on our doorstep. We were on the main road of Calcutta, Central Avenue, going from north to south. And naively, we discovered we were in this area called Sonagachi. And so it was a steep learning curve. We were learning language, we were homeschooling our kids for that first year, and my husband had some business contacts. One of them had said, if you see any bags, I have a retail bag store in the main drag of Queen Street, Auckland. I'd be happy to take some bags. And so we looked at all sorts of things. And one day my husband came home with a little jute bag, and he said, honey, you can sew, can't you? And I went, yeah. He said, do you reckon you could teach these women to sew? And that began the journey. And in 2001, we started Freeset with just 20 women. We really didn't know what we were doing. My husband had gone back to New Zealand with a few samples of bags, and he'd taken one of these kind of wine bags. And he walked into one of probably the largest liquor chains in New Zealand and presented these, and they miraculously said, we'll take 10,000. And it was like, well, there's a market there, so that's good. I tell you, we have very little business background, the two of us. And so we came back to Calcutta and tried to find people that could fulfill this order for us. And that began the process where in 2001, on the 17th of September, we began. Now, fast forwarding 12 years, we have over 200 women. Some of them are making these bags, some are making the t-shirts, and we're very grateful to Darden. You guys bought our t-shirts, that's awesome, that's exciting. And we are so grateful for you guys doing research. We need to grow the market because there are 200 women like Parole who are at Freeset, but actually in our neighbourhood there are 10,000 women trapped in prostitution. Majority of them, it's either generational. My grandmother, my great-grandmother has been in this trade. The stigma that is associated with that means that girls don't get an opportunity to rise above it. And so it is the expectation, and actually we have one great-grandmother who works for us at Freeset, and she began all those years ago in 2001. And in our first meetings, she sat with her granddaughter on her knee, and she said, my life is ruined. She was in her 40s at that stage. She said, my daughter's life is ruined because she too entered the sex trade. And she said, for the first time, I can dare to dream that my granddaughter might have a chance at a better life. Consequently, a few years down the track, this little girl is growing up, and she's now one of the girls that sews your t-shirts. She does step one, which is the one round where you put the rib around your neck. And Shamali has a beautiful little boy, Ritu, and Ritu's part of our nursery, our childcare facilities. And so for us, that's exciting. We have a great-grandmother and we have a great-grandchild in our nursery. That's a pretty cool generational thing that we are breaking the cycle. But 200 women when there are 10,000, and we're talking a square kilometre. Now Maribel and Kamcha saw that it's not a big area geographically. A square kilometre, 10,000 women they estimate. And that's just one red light area in Calcutta. Then there's Beau Bazaar, which is about 20 minutes down the road. And then there's Kalighat, which is associated with the Kali temple. And there are thousands of young girls who find themselves in these positions. I knew nothing about human trafficking or any of that kind of stuff when I left the fair shores of New Zealand. It's been a huge learning curve. But every one of these women deserve a chance at a better life. And so Freeset needs to grow. And we are so grateful to have some help to do that. And yes, we're doing t-shirts now. One of the things 12 years ago when we began, we actually looked at cotton bags. But at that stage, China had the market and there was no way that we could compete with that. And so we started with jute because another thing, being New Zealand and clean, green, beautiful New Zealand, there was this growing emphasis on eco-friendly products. And so jute bags were just being introduced. And so we kind of caught that idea and the jute bag business has grown. And then a few years later, we were able to introduce organic cotton. And you can see some of our bags here. And then a few years later, we were able to start the t-shirts. And again, working hard on trying to find organic cotton and fair trade cotton in India is not an easy thing. There are very, very few raw material available actually in that industry. So we're working with a company that is actually in the heart of Nagpur, which is the middle of India. And we get tons of cotton transported across. So we've had to learn a whole lot of logistical stuff and a whole lot of practical stuff along the way. But my husband's a bit crazy. You know, I've lived with him for a long time. And he comes home sometimes and says the craziest things. And yes, we've grown in Freeset, Calcutta. And about 2 years ago, he said to me, you know, at our current growth rate, and we're trying really hard every 3 months to take a new batch of girls, so we're growing by addition, but he said, I've just done the maths. We call it maths in New Zealand, not maths. It's going to take 98 years to reach those 10,000 women. That's not enough. So we've begun this journey of looking at having to multiply and begin this journey of words like incubators and incubation and starting new businesses. And one of the things we really have felt so concerned about is that many of the women who have been trafficked into Calcutta, just within the Freeset walls, many of them were saying, my village is in Mashidabad. Awful name to say, Mashidabad, it's really difficult. So we began to kind of go out to Mashidabad and visit and discovered it's a district that's only 5,000 square kilometres. But in the 2011 census, it had 52% of its population is below the Indian poverty line. So it's not the American BPL, it's the Indian standard. So it's a very, very poor district. 7.2 million people in this 5,000 square K. It's village after village after village, and there are Hindu villages and there are predominantly Muslim villages. It's a stronger Muslim community. But we are discovering that girls, young girls, are being sold from these villages and ending up like Parul, whose father died, and the milkman traffics her into Calcutta. So it's not necessarily the kidnapping that we often associate, maybe here in the West, but often it's friends, or it's even uncles, or it's even older brothers, because families will do anything when they're starving. And unfortunately in those rural villages that we're going, the girl child is not valued. You guys sitting here, it's great to see you and to think of the opportunities that you have and the great life you have ahead of you, but actually in some of those villages in Mashidabad, the girls don't have that opportunity. They don't even have the opportunity to go to school, because if you're poor, yes, the Indian government says every child has a right to an education until they're 15, but it's not happening in those back villages. And when there are crops to get, girls are also involved in having to go out to the fields and help bring in the rice or bring in the mustard seed or whatever they're producing. So they get taken out of school and they're expected to cook and clean for the rest of the family in preparation. And unfortunately, there's an awful lot of child marriages still happening. Again, the Indian government is trying to do a great job, and it says no girl is legally married until she's 18. But we've had girls as young as 9 and 10 who have been married off, and that's one of the things that happens is they get discarded. And that brings shame on their families, and so therefore they're vulnerable to entering the sex trade. So it's a huge problem. So we, as a couple, have moved to Murshidabad. The team in Calcutta, Freeset Bags and Apparel, is going strong. It's being led by a general manager, and we have a manager in the teas unit, and we have counsellors, and we have social workers, and we have nurses. Something that's deep in my heart is obviously the medical stuff. For many years I was Miss First Aid Officer, having to deal with all sorts of things out of my field of physio, but had to do it. Now we have a team that are working with our girls, and we provide health insurance, we provide a retirement fund. But now with this next launch, we're looking at starting other businesses. And so we're beginning the Freeset Business Incubator. Now it's probably words that you're very familiar with, it's not me, I'm just learning on the ground up. But we're beginning to trying to pull this together so that we can encourage new people to come and start new businesses that will affect the economy of these rural villages, so that hopefully at the source, more girls get an opportunity to stay in school, more girls get an opportunity of a different life. And one of the things personally that I'm involved in developing is a program we're calling Freedom Opportunities, where I hope that girls who have had the chance to go to class 10, 11, 12, so they've had a higher education than the women currently at Freeset Bags and Apparel. But I want to train them and dare to believe that one day they might be the future production managers. They might be the office workers. They might be the girls ringing up our logistics in Calcutta and saying, hey, I've got a shipment that's got to go from this factory down to Calcutta, things like that. So I'm really excited about it. And to have a team like JBI, I want them to train these girls so they become the voice for the others, so that girls aren't afraid in their village to go to the police, because the police are supposed to be there to help you. I want them to have a voice. I want them to have some legal training so that they can fill out the FIRs, the first incident reports. I want them to be able to know about human rights and the Child Labour Act and the Trafficking in Persons Act, things that the Indian government has put in place, but in the village it's ignored and not known about. So we're trying to affect that next generation and to encourage some of these girls to have a better opportunity, and those with leadership skills to develop those and encourage them so that they might be the future leaders. So we're excited about the future. My husband, crazy man that he is, right now his dream is to plant 5 new businesses a year. And I go, gosh, it took us 12 years to get Freeset to this point, Freeset Bags and Apparel. So we need help. I come to you today saying we need help. We don't have the business acumen. All we have is prepared to do hard work. We're prepared to put in the 14 hours to get a business up and running. And so with the incubator, we want to call like-minded people. We want to bring people from all across the world who will give training to people who might sign up and say, hey, yeah, I could do a business over here. So you guys with ideas, entrepreneurial ideas, send them our way. You know, we're at freesetglobal.com. Send us an idea if you think, hey, is this a business proposal? Because maybe in 5 years' time there might be a business that we could actually do that. And it could be of girls who've had a chance at a better life. So don't think any idea is too way out. My husband has these way out ideas. So we're excited about that. I'm going to just show you another video clip about the incubator. Hopefully it will just give you a little bit of a teaser and a taster. We now have a new website up, so freesetincubator.com, as well as our Freeset Global one. So
a choice is a powerful thing.
Go for it.
Especially if you don't have one. All around the world, young girls are sold into forced prostitution. Sold by their own families, because crushing poverty has left no other option. These girls are forced into a life of shame, abuse and social rejection, forced into a lucrative business in which they are the product, all because they have no choice. But what if we could replace this business that profits from them with one that profits for them? What if we could actually give them a choice? They could be free of this life that will consume them. Entire communities could be restored, transformed from ports of destruction to havens of life and growth. This even means that these women could change the lives of others, give young girls a choice that they never had. This is a huge task. It will take lots of help, lots of insight, lots of business partners from all over the globe, and it's worth it. We call these freedom businesses for a reason. It's not just a business, it's a choice. Your choice creates theirs, and the right choice changes everything.
Awesome. With that, I think we'll open up to some Q&A. If you have questions for Annie or Dave or anyone else here. Go ahead.
A question for Annie. So, I'm just thinking of like logistically, when you're targeting these women and girls to try to, pull them out, what challenges do you face? I mean, I'm sure there's a man or someone somewhere that they're having to answer to. How are you able to build that trust and get them to believe that you're something better?
One of the first things a woman, Mina, said to me when 12 years ago we talked about starting this business was she said, you have to earn my trust. And we've found that most of the 200 women who are now working at Freeset, it's been through relationship. We've lived in the community, we've been part of the community, and so it is easier when you're there to help that. And yes, we have problems, and sometimes for girls it means we have to find alternative accommodation before they can start. It's working, now we have this great team that work with all the issues to try and get a girl out. As we're going into the village, and this has been the amazing thing, is now we have actually women who have been with us in the beginning, and suddenly now 12 years they've got the confidence, and they actually are the frontline people. So we have this particular woman, Mina, who just goes into a village and she's got a little iPad, which is pretty awesome, and she's got on the iPad some photos and some, actually the promo video that Freeset has made so that they can actually see other girls are doing what it is. And we've found that relationship stuff, because Mina was in the sex trade herself. She was trafficked from Bangladesh when she was 13 in a refugee camp. So when she speaks to a girl, she speaks out of her own pain, but she says, I've done it. I've been able to sew, I've been able to learn this skill. I never thought I could, but I have. And I think that's been the greatest stuff for her.
I'm just thinking, one of the things it seems like that you're doing is you're providing an opportunity where other people wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, as you've been successful over those 14 years, it sounds like you have exciting plans to grow Freeset, but have other businesses in the area. Have you been able to kind of change the stigma and the perception to the point where other businesses say, hey, not only can we do some good for our community here by offering employment, but kind of trying to break down the stigma and the stereotype that is preventing people from, I know there's lots of reasons why it's hard for people to leave the line, but just wondering if you've seen change, or maybe it's just another business that's
No, we have, and that's been encouraging. 12 years ago we felt we were the only ones, but actually now we've seen other organisations come, and we've got sister organisations who are also doing freedom business, and there's another couple from New Zealand that have just been there for 2 years, and they're hoping to do their beautiful leather products. And so we've been able to kind of mentors probably, but walk the journey with them to the point that finally they've been able to get a premises, and they're in another red light area in Calcutta. So they've gone not into the Sonagachi one, but actually another one called Bogazar, which is 20 minutes down the road, which has been really exciting because there's been nothing happening there. And so we have seen this, this groundswell of people who are getting concerned about these issues of human trafficking and forced prostitution are coming, which is great. And we see the changes in the generational thing. So we've, in the last few years, had a whole lot more younger girls join us, and we've had girls who've been sewing T-shirts. We had 2 weddings earlier this year, because suddenly they're seen as a marriage of prospect because actually they're one step removed from my mother being in the sex trade. They don't need to mention that. I have a great job in a t-shirt factory. And that's seen as a next step up. And so they're suddenly available for marriage in a culture that is arranged marriage. And so we've had the joy of going to weddings, and we dare to hope that this will be a better life for them. And so that we're seeing that in a generational thing slowly over time breaking. Yeah, which is good.
First of all, it's really incredible what you've been able to build here, and it's an absolute honor to be listening to you. My question for you is, this is pretty big social stigma in India in general. How has the community either helped, or what have been some of the challenges in Calcutta itself, like not women who are going through this, but other people, like have they been
I
helpful?
think because the colour of our skin has actually helped. Because my kids, for example, I mean, they went to the international school, and so I got to know Indians from a different caste and different background, and interacting with their mothers there. And they all said, it's wonderful what you're doing, but we could never do it because of that social stigma. And one of our biggest challenges has actually been to attract that middle management level. Like when we started, it was all hands-on. Kerry and I were doing it, and then slowly other foreigners came. But actually, we want to grow that middle management level, and that has been extremely hard. We've had people come for job interviews and been great candidates, and then we say to them, we want to make sure that your family's happy, because we're the Freeset Bags and Apparel office is on the edge of the red light district, and so you are coming to your office in this area, which in Calcutta is, you only go there for one reason. And we've lost some people when they've said, yeah, we want to come because of the family pressure, and that's been hard. Politically, in the last couple of years, we've noticed a huge, I guess, even to, a lot of political pressure to shut us down, so suddenly we're above the radar. I mean, as a company, we're making over 250,000 bags a year. We are producing 60,000 teas, and we have the capabilities to do more in our teas. And it's like we are over the radar now with our financial statements with the Indian stuff. So we've noticed a huge lot of political pressure, some of it not so subtle. We've had police come into the fact just for no reason at all. We had a court case laid against us, and primarily it was our local councillor who brought that against us, and it was just like, we're just trying to do a good thing here, so have felt that. But interestingly enough, I found it was that 10-year mark, when we were there for 10 years, suddenly I felt that there was a switch with the community that's seen us, that's seen our kids growing up, and suddenly we are seen as insiders rather than outsiders, and that's been cool, very cool.
It's very inspiring, the stuff that you've done. I was thinking, one of the root cause I found is for the children to be sold because their families are very poor. Have you thought about, involving in helping those families to elevate them out, above the poverty life, and what are the challenges in doing that, because that's what I felt the root cause of the problem.
Yeah, it is, and that's why we want to be intentional about going to the village area where it is, yes, there's poverty in Calcutta and we're affecting those families, but we do have a childcare, and then part of our team is to make sure that some of these girls are getting, especially for the girl child, and many parents, their mums don't want them to grow up in the red light area, and so it's like, are there schools that we can partner with who will take our children? And we've found a number of those, which has been exciting. So we're trying to help the whole family medically as well, and certainly in the village areas, that's what we want to do. And so the village business may look very different. We're predominantly in Calcutta, it's 200 women and 25 men working. It might actually reflect that there are fathers working for a freedom business, and they commit, A, I'm not going to get my daughter sold off. I'm going to allow her to go to school. B, she's not going to be given to child marriage until she's 18. things like that. So it may look very, very different as we establish this business. And just to give you a proviso, I'm wearing one of our Freeset fabric scarves. We started a new company, did the legal stuff towards the end of last year. So as of now, Freeset Fabrics is a private limited liability company in India, and this will be in a village called Valkundi, which is about 200k north of Calcutta. And it has a Mashirabad across India is known for its silk and fabric. There's a lot of handloom products. We want to revitalise that industry, and we want to use that. So that's what we're hoping, that this year we'll begin training some girls on handloom products. These are the first samples. I've brought a few with me. But we believe the handloom product stuff could go as well and grow. And so we hope to start with 20 girls, train them out of the village of Valkundi. And that means 20 families from that village. The economy will start to change.
Once the girls or women, they have started working with you, do you see some of them or many of them going back to prostitution or moving out in the industry once they have gained the skills of either weaving or making the bags?
In our early years, we weren't so strong on that. We were saying, hey, we want to give you a different choice. We want to give you an opportunity. And now we are very intentional about saying, if girls, you want to come to Freeset, it's because you want freedom. You want them out of this trade, or you know, it's your parents. The mothers are bringing their daughters and saying, can you take them a chance at a better life? And so we're being intentional about that. And there are some girls that it's a long journey, might be 3 or 4 years, and we know that they moonlight. But that's okay, we're not going to condemn them for that. We're here to support them, encourage them, and help them in any way, shape or form so that they can make that final step. For others, it's instant. It's like, as soon as training's over, I'm leaving the line because now I'm getting a decent wage.
So the reason I asked that question is because since you brought up the question about the business incubator, obviously you're looking to place these women into other businesses. So if you can provide, or you can supply women who are skilled in bag making to outside bag makers, then how does that work?
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a dream. One of our girls who started in bags, she's now learned the teas, and now she's working in a t-shirt factory across town. Her mother has been able to leave the area, and they're in another suburb of Calcutta, which is huge. We have a lady, Kundula, she was one of our first, and she intentionally relocated to another area called Kesterpur. It's about half an hour bus ride. Now I think we have 19 women who travel with every day from that area, and it was Kundula who started it, and she just got this tiny little house. And then another girl needed a accommodation out, and so Kundula went to her landowner and said, can you and so then it started. So now we actually have another community almost out there where these women are travelling into work every day, which is exciting. And I love it because Kundula says, I can hold my head up high. No one needs to know my past.
Sure.
And yeah, that's good.
That was a great question, though, because generally when you're in the area of trafficking and slavery and going back is the biggest problem. And a lot of times we rescue people. That's why an organization like Freeset is so important. It gives people other options. People might have nothing else that they can do, so it's a very high risk of going back. You track a lot of people that are rescued. A lot of them end up going back unless you can really intervene. And some rescue is not easy, but sometimes rescue is the easy part, rather than dealing with what comes.
And I think as girls, this lady Kundula, for example, this village that we're doing these scarves in, she's from that village. And she now goes back to that village, and I think as she confronts village elders and say, hey, there has been an issue of trafficking in this village, and she begins to be the voice there, that's when we start to see change as well in the mindset. So that's the encouraging thing.
Time for 1 or 2 more questions. Go ahead.
Are you fully sort of self-funded and sustaining through the profits of the business, or how do you kind of deal with getting donations? How is that?
bags and apparel, our startup capital was pretty slim because we started with 10 treadle sewing machines, 1 roll of jute, bunch of scissors, so it didn't take a lot of capital. And now the business has been able to buy buildings so that we can, expand. We've now bought another one, and we hope to start a new unit in that right in the other side of Sonagachi. So that's been exciting. We rely on a lot of volunteers, like the foreigners that come, and my husband and I, we don't take a cent from the business. We're supported from friends and family back home and stuff back in New Zealand. But we are determined to say to these women, what you earn and what you make, the profits go back so that we can take more girls on. And that's our fundamental line. We're in business for freedom. We're not in business to line our own pockets, which is an interesting thing. But so the girls are confident with that, and it means that as we grow, it means we're able to take on more. And sure, with the new businesses, we need to use startup capital, and that's where donations are helpful. And we're working through the legal side. Anna Kim here is part of our USA board, and she's working on tax exemption status for us so that we can get some, because as we move forward we need that and growing.
There are a couple of nonprofits that are dedicated to helping Freeset, and so there are ways for nonprofits to raise funds for fundraising and support organizations that have flowing projects that are dedicated to charitable work, so that even though Freeset Global is a company in India for their specific projects that the U.S. nonprofit can track and verify our charitable projects. There are ways of structuring that. So, thank you.
Last question?
So basically, for people who plan to be a part of the incubator, what is the marketing structure that you have in place in the organization in terms of, how have you been able to reach out to, export all the things that you make there, or is it very New Zealand specific, or are you trying to?
We started off certainly with New Zealand because that was our home base.
Yeah.
But we have distributors across the US.
Okay.
We have UK, which is going into Europe, and some of our New Zealand distributors that are going into Australia. But to be honest, the way we've grown, it's mostly been by word of mouth. It's been incredible, actually, the social media stuff.
Yeah.
People coming along and seeing what we're doing. So that's been our best marketing strategy. But as we go forward and want to plant multiple businesses, we're looking at branding and how that works, and it's a whole new ball game.
I think to that point, one of the things that I wanted to close with is, for those of you who are interested, how do you get involved, especially here at Darden? For me, part of it's been just being able to visit, but I've been glad for the team that's doing the GFE. We hope, this is just the first GFE. We're talking about doing future ones. Freeset today has issues with capacity constraints in terms of just not having enough factory floor space, with distribution, with raising capital, as Annie mentioned. So there are all these different challenges where, they're going to figure it out, but definitely that's where we can think of where we can add value. So especially for you, rising second years, think about, is a GFE one way to get involved? Outside of that, I would definitely recommend if you want to be sort of more broadly involved or sort of, in a different capacity as at Darden, Anna works with a lot of US volunteers on different sort of projects, and so you can reach out to her through me or directly with, and definitely that's one way to get involved. And if you're really interested in graphic design, maybe you don't want to have a business with graphic design, that's one way. Or if you happen to be, have a legal background, that's another huge way. Like if you're JD MBA, you can do both.
We need accountants, we need business people.
So there's a ton of ways to get involved. Sort of to close out, there are bags available here for sale. No pressure whatsoever. If you'd like to, there are some people who requested buying bags, so if you'd like to buy a bag, feel free to. But no worries. Both Anna, David, and Annie will be here for another 15 minutes or so. So please feel free to come down. I did want to close by thanking them for visiting. So you guys can give them a round of applause.